Whilst we were at the awards night last night, it prevented me from seeing this interview. I will catch up with it. I've seen bits of it, parts of it. Conor Benn, of course, was speaking to talkTV's Piers Morgan. What did we learn after all of this? Of course, we all know what happened regards Conor Benn. Anybody who doesn't, where have you been? He was about to fight Chris Eubank Jr. And then it came to light that Conor Benn had failed a drugs test. And the fight was put in serious jeopardy. Was it going to take place? No, it didn't. And since then, Chris Eubank Jr. has gone into the ring again. He lost to Liam Smith, and a whole bunch of circumstances have changed. In the meantime, Conor Benn has been spending most, if not all of his time, trying to prove his innocence. So, Conor Benn in conversation with Piers Morgan. And at the start of this, you're going to hear from Conor Benn's dad, Nigel Benn.
If I ever thought my son was guilty of anything, mate, I'd say, son, I love you, but you know what? You got to deal with this on your own, mate. I'd hang him out to dry. But I was actually in this training camp with him, Piers. I was training with him. The same way I feel that they're dealing with Conor and not these other fighters is the same way they dealt with me.
Listen, Nigel, I understand your passion. I understand Conor's passion. But I also think if you've gone to all this trouble to draw up this massive dossier of evidence and the British Boxing Board is asking for it, I don't understand how it can be anything but bad for your case if you don't hand it over. I mean, at very least, call their bluff. Say, right, here you are. Get them to respond to it. I don't know why, if I was in your position, that's what I would do.
I still don't think that proves my innocence at all. I've just been cleared by the organisation, the test in which I failed.
I don't understand why you wouldn't want to counter that agenda by making public this dossier.
Because I don't know what it is they got in for me. I don't know what vendetta it is.
Yeah, but it's like saying you're accused of killing someone.
Okay, but I've been proven innocent by the authorities that run that test.
I wouldn't say you've been proven innocent. They just couldn't.
Well, just give me the clear. They've said you're.
They said there was no conclusive evidence. Just to be clear, exactly what they said, right? It's not an absolutely unequivocal. You're definitely innocent, but it's certainly not unhelpful. Nigel.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I don't know what the legal side of it, but yeah, me personally, and I love my son, and I know for a fact that he's an innocent man.
I don't know what they're not getting there, Simon. Piers Morgan's absolutely right.
He is.
He's querying why the family hadn't released this 270-page dossier put together by Conor Benn's team, which they say proves Conor's innocent. Make the damn thing public.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you if you're protesting his innocence?
Yeah. Well, there's the question, isn't it? I mean, I think on the whole, Piers Morgan did the interview in a fashion that most people would have wanted to see. Yes, it could have been grittier. Yes, it could have been stronger. And yes, he could have been double down with Conor on really trying to get underneath the reasons why he will not go to the British Boxing Board of Control. His answer was because they can do one. That was his answer.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not logical. If you want to... First of all, for Conor, he wasn't exonerated by the WBC. They don't have a position to exonerate anybody. They're not the governing body of a sport. They're a sanctioning body. So what they say is almost irrelevant. What they did was they became a witness for the defence. They provided him with an alternate version because the 270-page report that his lawyers and the individual experts they brought in has produced was about VADA testing, and they didn't go with that. Now, it might be they didn't go with that because it's WBC testing, and there may be that they felt there were some issues with their own testing. We've yet to hear that or see that. But what they did was they gave him an alternate explanation, which he doesn't want to have. So there's such an irony. He doesn't want this alternate explanation. But it's very clear to anybody that sat and listened to that interview. The tragedy of it is that Conor, first of all, is being guided by his lawyers, and I wonder what their end game is. Their end game is not to get him cleared through the processes that are available to most sportsmen, which is going through the governing body. Their end game seems to have some sort of compensatory end game attached to it, which is about finances, which is about suing people for things that you've lost. And of course, Conor alludes to the lack of it, the revenue that he'd have lost from the Chris Eubank fight and reputational damage.
Right.
Well, in order to have reputational damage, you have to exhaust all the possibilities. And clearly the possibilities that you have with this is you stand in front of the British Boxing Board of Control, you go through their process. If you feel that their process is prejudiced in any shape or form and you get an outcome that you don't like, you go to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. That's what you do. You don't go to a sanctioning body round the side to give yourself some form of credence. Tragically for me, listening to that interview, I saw a very conflicted young man. I don't think he was particularly helped by his father coming on. I don't understand, and this is a very sort of controversial subject, I don't understand someone that's in this kind of mental condition. And if my son was in this mental condition, I'm not sure I'd be in Australia. I think I'd be with him, making sure that he was looked after. Yeah. So all of it didn't add up to me. And I listened to it, and Piers pushed on it. He pushed on as much as he possibly could, but there's so much devil in the detail.
Well, this is the thing. I alluded to this at the top of the show. Since the interview was broadcast, this Twitter spat has developed between Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Now, I'm going to put this to you, Simon. Eubank Jr. says this: I was 99% sure that Conor was a cheat. But after watching that interview with Piers Morgan, now I'm 100% sure. Imagine failing 2 drugs tests and then trying to play the victim. The ball's on this kid, or should I say, the egg's on him.
Yeah, well.
And we see what he's doing with that. Do you think Eubank Jr. is spot on with what he's saying there?
I think there's probably a lot in that conversation between the two of them. When Conor Benn comes back and says, you tried to get another $1 million quid out of me, I bet there was a conversation going on, because we know there was a conversation going on suggesting that you can fight with this particular substance, because the medical advice that Kali Sauerland came in here and said he'd given to his fighter suggested that he could. And I bet you Eubank's gone back into the equation and gone, I tell you what, given the circumstances that I now see myself in, I'll have an extra $1 million quid in this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if that conversation was had. So I don't think any of them, none of them.
Yeah.
Nobody in this conversation, nobody has covered themselves in glory. Not the fighters, certainly not the promoters, and not the British Boxing Board of Control. The British Boxing Board of Control have been pushed around. And when you sit there and you see a failed test, and of course you've got 2 failed tests, and then you've got UCAD tests being passed. But of course what people forget to drop in the conversation is timing is everything. When you have substances in your body, you can time tests to be able to overcome the fact that they were once there and they're no longer there. Then you can start again. The bottom line is, and Piers tried to drill down on it, I didn't think he went hard enough, but you can only go so far, which was, there is no logic in this world that you can put in front of me, Conor, to tell us, besides the fact you don't like Robert Smith and what happened to your father 30 years ago is an irrelevance. What's the agenda? What is the agenda that you are talking about that the governing body of this sport has against you? What's the agenda? What precisely? Not what you think they can go and do one. If you want to defend yourself and you want to get yourself in this situation where you are exonerated, which you are not by the WBC, you have to go through the proper process. And he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to.
I don't want to be cruel to Conor here, because I like him, you like him.
He's been badly advised.
We know. I was just about to say that.
He's been badly advised.
But the thing is this, Simon, if ever mud sticks here, right?
He's been badly advised. If you're going to send this boy onto a show to talk about things, the one subject's going to come up, why would he go on British Boxing Board of Control? He had to have been briefed. He had to have a shtick to answer that. He had no shtick. All his shtick was, they can do one. That was his answer. Why should I have to? Why should I have to deal with them? Why should I have to answer to them? Because they're the licensing body of this country. And if you want to get rid of this, and if you really want to get rid of it, as unfair as it may be in your eyes, then go that mile. Go through their process. I've had to do it. I'll get drugged. I was a multi-millionaire football club chairman. I got dragged in front of the FA for something I wrote in the newspapers, and by Christ, I resented it. And I thought, who are you people? Who are you people to drag me in front of it? I fund a football club and give people like you a job. Who are you to drag me in front of you?
So you fought it head on.
So I fought it head on.
Right at the throats.
And if I was Conor Benn, because this is not now about exonerating him. This is about a compensation culture. And the moment you will lawyers into a situation, they're trying to find a way around getting Conor to a position where economically he does not get impacted.
But instead of the situation becoming clearer, the waters have become muddier.
It's clear. It's clear. It's not become muddier. Conor Benn does not want to put himself in the hands of the governing board. And the reasons for that is that he doesn't believe in his mind's eye he's going to get a fair outcome. There's no logical progression. It's really simple. Manchester City did it with UEFA. They went to what they considered to be their kangaroo court. They went through their process and they went to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. If Conor Benn wants to do it properly, he would take it to the British Boxing Board of Control. He would leak the 270-page report that he's produced, which is all about VAR equipment. And the reason why they don't want to is because it doesn't suit them, Jim. It doesn't suit them to do it. Otherwise, they'd be doing it. They'd be singing like a canary. And so with that in mind, he doesn't want to be in front of the British, because he knows what the outcome is. He knows that the British Boxing Board of Control have inserted a very, very strict guideline, strict liability. Whatever you've got in your body, You have to be able to explain, and that's the point he can't overcome.
Do you think Conor Benn fights again in this country?
Not until he explains himself to the British Boxing Board of Control. Now, if they ever see change and decide that all of a sudden they're going to be terrified and their knees are going to knock about this potential case, well, I'm assuming if they're a proper organisation, they've got professional liability insurance.
Yeah.
Right? They have got to fight their cause. I genuinely don't believe, and I really sat there watching Conor Benn thinking, you're somebody that's trying to please your father.
Yeah.
You look like somebody, a young man that's lost in this world.
Yeah. I don't know about your phone, but my phone's gone crazy with messages. You're probably the same. Conor Benn, if you're going to prove your innocence, then prove it.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.